It's so wonderful to be back with all of you. And as always, I just want to express my deep gratitude to the Institute and to Mark particularly for creating this wonderful space that sustains us. So today I wanted to talk about heart qualities. As I walk through the world in the past couple of weeks, I've been coming into people's presence who've been talking about open-heartedness, which we talk about a lot. It's a beautiful, beautiful quality and something to cultivate. And as I was thinking about it, it occurred to me that while this is such a beautiful quality, it might not always be exactly what the heart needs in each moment. So it's not quite Groundhog's Day, and I did not plan this, but just as there's a binary with the groundhog, depending on the shadow, we're going to make a choice today in our meditation practice a little bit later about two different routes to go with our individual practice today. So first, I want to share a little bit about this idea of open-heartedness as it relates to our identity as Jewish people. And we have in our text this very interesting idea about being uncircumcised of heart. And so I want to talk just a little bit about what that means. So in Jeremiah, there's a section where the prophet Jeremiah points out the fact that Jewish people observe this rite of circumcision and makes a distinction between Jews who observe this rite and the other nations who do not observe this rite. And then he goes on to admonish the Jewish people, saying, well, fine, you observe this ritual circumcision, but you're uncircumcised of heart. And the way in which Jeremiah is admonishing the people is really saying to them, you're not walking through this world with an open heart. Your heart is closed, caged, covered in a very hard way that does not allow things to permeate. And so he's really encouraging this way of walking through the world, with a wide open heart. So he's saying that we have built these cages around our heart that protect us from feeling anything at all. When we walk through the world with a sense of open-heartedness, we also walk in vulnerability. And there is indeed a time for open-heartedness. Our practice, though, encourages us to discern and to be mindful of each moment. And so I was thinking about this idea of open-heartedness as it relates to the world which we find ourselves living in, which for many of us, if we were to fully open our hearts and walk in true and honest vulnerability through each and every moment, it would be just too much to bear, too much for the heart to handle. So there's another concept from our mystical, Kabbalistic, and Hasidic tradition that talks about God and God being veiled. So it's not a steel covering, it's not a cage, but just this gentle covering, perhaps a really fuzzy blanket. And perhaps a veil, sometimes you can even see through it. So perhaps there's just a small covering, or maybe you're feeling in a place that's so vulnerable that you need to, like in a hotel, pull down those blackout curtains and just really cover and protect that heart. So today, in our practice, what I'd encourage us to explore is finding discernment and clarity as we sit, to see where our heart is in this moment. And are we at a time in each moment as it passes during our meditation where our hearts are calling for that open-heartedness, vulnerability? Or are we experiencing right in this moment a moment where maybe the heart needs a little protection and covering? So 3 things we're going to explore today: this discernment, this idea of open-heartedness, and this idea of protecting that gentle heart. So I'll ask you now to find a comfortable way to sit. Just taking a few cleansing breaths. Whether they're normal breaths, that you allow the idea of cleansing to enter, or perhaps even taking a breath in and allowing whatever cleansing you need to happen to occur on the exhale. Just a few breaths there. As you continue to breathe, see if you can picture the area right in front of the third eye, creating almost a crystalline bubble there, and inviting discernment into the breath, inviting awareness into the mind and into the body. And just sitting there, picturing that bright crystalline space in front of the third eye, seeing it perhaps as both distinct from the self, but also connected very, very clearly to the self. We're going to begin exploring open-heartedness. Allow the chest to come forward where you're sitting. Allow the shoulders to lift and fall back, making that heart space accessible and open physically. Inviting a sense of vulnerability and open-heartedness into your practice right now. And then as you continue to breathe normally, noticing how does that open-heartedness, how does this quality resonate in the physical body? What are the physical sensations that open-heartedness brings to you in this moment? Just limiting the self to noticing the physical sensations at this time. Do that for a couple of breaths. And staying in this open-hearted state, turning now toward the emotions And taking time to discern and be aware, what emotions come up for me as I sit in this open-hearted space? And we'll sit there for just a couple of breaths. And I'll invite you now, if it's comfortable and if you're able, to take your hand. Imagine gathering a soft, warm, velvety blanket. Gather it and physically place it over the heart. You can even allow your stature to change, allowing your shoulders to relax, perhaps even creating a little concave space for the heart to rest and dwell within. And bringing that sense of protection and loving care and gentleness to cover and protect the heart. And noticing with these next few breaths, how does this feel in the body? What are the physical sensations I experience as I offer protection to my heart? And then expanding awareness to the emotional state as my heart is covered, as my heart is veiled, as my heart is protected. How does this make me feel? What emotions am I experiencing in this moment with a protected heart? Just sitting for a few breaths with the protected heart. We're going to sit just for 5 minutes. And this is the choose your own adventure piece. Perhaps that protected heart space is a place you want to explore more because it felt really comfortable and comforting. Or perhaps the open-hearted space felt really freeing to you today. And I'll invite you to make a choice which space you want to inhabit. The other thing is maybe one of those places felt challenging in a way that feels safe that you'd like to take on today. And if that's the case, you can make that choice and sit in that space. So making a choice now, whether it's an open-hearted or protected-hearted space that you'd like to sit in. And when we're done with our silent sit, you'll hear a bell, and I will share a poem with us to bring us out of our meditation. into a world which needed you. My wish for you is that you continue to be who and how you are, to astonish a mean world with your acts of kindness. Continue to allow humor to lighten the burden of your tender heart. Continue in a society dark with cruelty to let the people hear the grandeur of God in the peals of your laughter. Continue to let your eloquence elevate the people to heights they had only imagined. Continue to remind the people that each is as good as the other and that no one is beneath nor above you. Continue to remember your own young years and look with favor upon the lost and the least and the lonely. Continue to put the mantle of your protection around the bodies of the young and defenseless. Continue to take the hand of the despised and diseased and walk proudly with them in the high street. Some might see you and be encouraged to do likewise. Continue to plant a public kiss of concern on the cheek of the sick and the aged and infirm, and count that as a natural action to be expected. Continue to let gratitude be the pillow upon which you kneel to say your nightly prayer, and let faith be the bridge you build to overcome evil and welcome good. Continue to ignore no vision which comes to enlarge your range and increase your spirit. Continue to dare to love deeply and risk everything for the good thing. Continue to float happily in the sea of infinite substance, which set aside riches for you before you had a name. Continue, and by doing so, you and your work will be able to continue eternally. Thank you for your practice today. May you find discernment as you walk into each and every moment as to what your heart needs in that moment.
Thank you, Kerith. Thanks so much. Welcome back. So good to have you back. And we will end that beautiful practice by offering an opportunity for those of you who are in mourning to recite the Mourner's Kaddish. You can put the name or names of those you're honoring. If you're not reciting Kaddish, we ask you please stay present. For those who are, really put that poem into practice right now by directing your open heart, loving heart towards those in mourning. And again, please put the name or names of those you're honoring today in the chat, either now or after you recite Kaddish. Thanks to Harry for sharing the words on the screen. And if you're reciting Kaddish, excuse me, I invite you to join me by rising in body or in spirit to recite the words together. You can unmute at this time.
Hatun Shirata Tushpahanta Velkamata Damivan Hemu Paradamishamaya Vapaim Ashwaka Shavim Mamalia Seshamabane Vake Sadava
Amen.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks, Harry, for bringing, you can take down the words now. Appreciate it. And thanks everyone for being here today for our practice. If you're leaving us now, we hope you'll join us tomorrow for our session with Janice Rouse on navigating the aging body. We'll welcome our friends from Dorot for that, as I mentioned. Thanks to Cantor, Kerith, Spencer-Shapiro for leading us again today. It's wonderful to have you back, Kerith. And thanks to Harry Gilboa for holding our tech space with the support of Andrew Schulman today. I guess that's it. So as always, you're invited to stay on. You continue to stay with that practice if you like. Just use this time for your own personal practice. You can turn off the sound if you like, or you can join us for conversation with Kerith about today's practice, or to share reflections on your experience with it in the chat. Didn't mention at the outset, but just an additional thing about Kerith is that she has a lot of teachings as well as an Insight Timer for those of you who want to avail yourself of that app and that resource. So check that out as well. Okay. Kerith, thanks so much. So good to have you back. And your dog, what's your dog's name? Polka Dot?
Yes.
Kind of woke up at the end there. It was great.
She loves to be a part of it.
Thanks for leading us, Polka Dot. Appreciate it. I really, this question of open-heartedness is a big one, especially in the early part of the book of Exodus, with thinking about the Pharaoh and the opening of the heart and the hard-heartedness. I really appreciated your, bringing, there's all these different metaphors, like the circumcised or the uncircumcised heart. And it brought my attention when we started sitting and you were guiding us to the heart as an organ that is protected by this, framework, basically, right? That is strong and, protective, and yet has these spaces, right, that you can see through, which I really don't think I'd quite, I don't know, just I was experiencing it in a new way, because you were inviting us to just say a little bit more. I want to invite you to say a little bit more about what you meant by discernment. Well, the way I understood it was we're discerning about, okay, there is a need for some protectiveness. We can't walk through the world with, with a naked heart, right? We need protection. Heart needs some kind of protection. The question is, moment to moment, what's the nature of that protection? That's what I was getting. Did I get that right?
Absolutely. And I think sometimes if we're not, one of the things that is so wonderful about a meditative practice is that it allows us this discernment to see where we are and to give ourselves just that millisecond of pause to say, what do I need to bring to this space in this moment? Mm-hmm. And I hear sometimes in, more enlightened circles that there's an emphasis on this open-heartedness piece, which I think is like a balance to the fact that many of us may walk around with maybe too much covering of our hearts. Uh-huh. That's not true for everyone. There are some people who their default space mm-hmm. is being vulnerable. Maybe that's where they live, right? And so the idea is not to say that one is better than the other. For me, I think the idea, especially with this mindfulness practice, is to say what is called for in this moment that, certainly both serves me so that I can maintain my equanimity, but also serves the moment and serves the people who I'm interacting with and the world that I live in. And I think sometimes there's a message that, well, it's always open-heartedness. That's the good place to be. Right. And I don't think that's true. I think there are times when protection is called for, and it doesn't have to be put in a steel safe with a with a lock on it. Depending on the situation, what we offer to cover our heart with can be like a cloth that's completely see-through, or it can be something that's much richer and thicker if the moment calls for that. But not that it's a hard encasement. It's a
Right.
soft, protective, gentle, loving encasement to the
Right.
self. And then also allowing protection to the other that one's interacting with. Because sometimes if we walk into a space completely vulnerable, it's not appropriate to walk into that space that way, we can then have responses that are triggering to other people. So it's really, I think, for me, a really grounding practice, and helps some of that self-judgment move away. So.
Yeah. Valerie's asking the question, which goes to the same point, really, but how have you found it possible to shield or protect your own heart when it's feeling vulnerable and sad? So, what does that look, what does the practice look like about how to do that and yet stay connected in some way, which is really, talk about a timely practice, right? Right now.
Yeah. So I think when we're presented with a situation where we feel really emotionally overwhelmed and that the heart is really heavy, if we have an established practice, this might be really helpful. As we know, jumping into a practice without any bedrock foundation, it might be hard to do that. So that's why the continued practice is really important, I think, first of all. And so to jump in and expect this to happen like that is not being fair to the self. And that's why we call it a practice. We just keep doing it, practicing it so that when we walk into the world and have these feelings, we might be able to say, oh, I've felt this, I've practiced this feeling before. What does this call for? How much protection do I need to offer myself? Share something with y'all that at the very beginning of my career, when I started visiting people in hospitals, I walked in with a completely unprotected heart, and it was very overwhelming for me. And so I created a ritual for myself that I still use to this day, that when I am going to visit people who are in a really difficult situation, that I engage in this ritual before I enter and then after I enter. And it's basically this small ritual of creating a little protection around myself so that I can be present to help the people who. So I feel like this practice is related to that in some way, but it's really just for every day. It's for all the time. And I think sometimes we think, well, we're not serving humanity if we step back or cover or don't feel everything all at once. And I don't believe that that's true. We're humans. We're not saints, and we're not God. So we have to take advantage of those moments when we feel free to express that open-heartedness, and also offer that gentleness to the self at the times where we need it. And so I guess my answer to the question is just practice, practice, practice.
Mm-hmm.
And see how those seeds that you're planting may bear fruit in your daily life, and then take time to notice that.
There are so many really good variations on the theme in the chat of covering the heart with a blanket and with a soft-sided carrying case for a trip for a cat carrier, pet carrier, and talit, and lots of images.
I love it.
Yeah, I think it's all really interesting, I'm still playing in my own mind with that kind of the lattice work of the rib cage, um, where the heart is like, you can see right through to the heart, right? But it also has and the other thing that I think Michael mentions here, which is also interesting, because if we want to get into a Kabbalistic way of thinking about it, and the Sphirot, the different emanations, the heart space is Tiferet, which is the center, which is kind of an amalgam of Chesed and Gevura, of total connectedness, like what you were describing as when you started your career, just being all Chesed, right? And that we need some Gevura, and that's really the discernment, is like the boundary, how much we need that boundary and protection, how much we need the connection, and how do we hold both at the same time. And that seems to me to be really like, as we navigate this world right now, both domestically, politically, and the post-October 7th world, such a challenge, really hard, but it's good to be among people who are working at it. Lori's asking the poem at the end. By the way, I put it in, and I want to thank you for the poem too, which is just pretty. I actually didn't. I had never heard it. I don't know if others had heard it today, but it's obviously pretty well known. The poem at the end, Lori's asking, Lori Kleinberg, the poem at the end seems to encourage much more openness than you've advised. Can you comment on that?
So that's so interesting. I hope I'm not advising.
Okay.
So that's
inviting.
Comment number one. Because the poem does say don't put yourself higher than anyone else, and I certainly aim to take heed of that advice that Maya Angelou offers. It's interesting, the poem does offer some ideas about protection as well. So it's interesting to me that's the message that you received, Lori, from the poem. I felt for me that the poem was a little bit more balanced. So I think that's really subjective. As at reading any poem is the way we receive that. And that reflects back to, the way that we walk into the world. Lori, if you and I walk into the same circumstance, we might need very, very different things in that moment. And so that discernment piece, I think, is the most important piece here. And we often don't have time to say, oh, hold on, I'm gonna take a moment here and think about what my heart needs. And again, that's just why this mindfulness practice and being really rooted in having a strong practice as a basis can offer such fruit, because rather than having to take that moment in real time, we've done it before. We've prepared for it. So when we show up, we can find ourselves having a response where we look back and say, I was able to do this because of my practice. I was able to discern what my heart needed because of my practice. I think without awareness and without a really solid practice, I think it's almost impossible to do.
Yeah. All right. I put the, I hope I actually don't know if what I put in is the full, I don't know if you have a link, Canty, to the poem, Kerith, but people should be able to find it.
Yeah, it's Continue, the name of the book, Continue, and it's by Maya Angelou. And I think it is a rather well-known poem, but I'm so happy that I got to introduce it to you, Mark.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's great. It's great. All right, Kerith, thank you again so much, as always. And thanks to Harry and Andrew for holding our space, and to each of you for being here. And we really hope you'll join us tomorrow. And by the way, please spread the word if you think anybody might be especially interested in joining us. For anyone who has an aging body, which is
All of us.
pretty good, all of us, it might be of use. So we'll look forward to seeing you and sitting into Shabbat together tomorrow. Kerith, thanks so much, and looking forward to seeing you soon. Okay.
Care.
Shabbat shalom to you, and early for those who are not joining us, an early Shabbat shalom to you. We'll see you soon. Take care.